Salutations everyone, this is Razor here giving you guys another Smash video. Here, I think this encompasses both Melee and Smash 4, but more specifically Smash 4, and we're talking about coaching. That's been a hot topic issue more recently than in the past, and specifically mid-set coaching that takes place in between games where you call a timeout, and then the TO's right there with a 30-second timer. You can talk to your coach either in person or on the phone once you get the phone call to connect. And a lot of people, a lot of fans have their voices that are thrown out into the void, and a lot of players have been passionate one way or another. More likely people are passionate against it because that's just the way that the world works. Whenever there's two competing sides, it's usually the negative side that's yelling louder. That's just the way that it is, no matter what the subject is. So it is a very interesting subject, and I think it's a subject that cannot be solved. I think this is an argument that will never end. Like it has in other sports, sports that you aren't holding a controller for. And we'll get into like the nitty gritty of like how coaching is treated in other esports as well as other sports, and whether they're even something that you should include in this conversation, whether they hold any sort of weight, which they do, but we'll talk about that later. It's an argument that I don't think will be solved, which is a shame, but that's just the way that it works. Obviously, this would only be something you can control in a Smash-only tournament. For instance, like EVO, it's not something that Smash controls, but Smash is a part of it. And according to EVO rules, there is no mid-set coaching, so we have no say in that matter. But as far as like, Genesis or Super Smash Gone or, 2GG Sagas and, things of that nature, even locals, which you don't see many people take super duper seriously, and you almost never see coaching. The majors that are Smash centric, we do have that sort of control, and most of the TOs out there, the tournament organizers, have kind of held to the same rule set, although we do need it to be universal. Of course, everyone would like, stage ban picking to be universal, and like, what rule set are we playing here? That is something that we would like throughout all Smash tournaments. We want consistency about how you do, stage picks and counter picks and bans and things like that. But most of that is consistent throughout most tournaments. Sometimes there is some confusion, but for the most part, that is like a huge contentious thing. And when it comes to coaching, most tournaments, it seems, through my experience watching pretty much every single Smash 4 tournament ever, or at least every single major, and a large group of locals and some internationals as well, most in the past, let's say, the past year, let's concentrate on that because that's, obviously the most relevant. Most tournaments have allowed 30-second timeouts that allow coaching, but how that is handled hasn't been super consistent. I think what we would all like, even those that are in favor of coaching, would like to see some consistency in how the rules are structured, and to keep everything at a more fair playing field, less chaotic, to where you have to name who your coach is before the set, and you have to tell your opponent, who that coach is. Kind of like, like a double blind pick. Everyone has to, stick with, the rules and do what they say that they're going to do. And so you know the rules ahead of time. If there's coaching, for how long, if it's only, in between sets, or if it's only in between games, and how often and for how long. But for the most part, it seems that you've been able to designate one person as your coach, and if you haven't done that either before the set or before bracket play sometimes, then you can't change who your coach is or add a coach if you didn't have a coach, or maybe they were in the venue or something like that, so you couldn't set it up. Those kind of things are very, very messy, and we would kind of have to clean that up. But I think everybody can agree we would want to, if we allow coaching, and some people are against it, and we'll get into that argument, but I think everyone, even those that are against coaching, would like, if coaching is allowed, for everything to be consistent, for the coach to be named at the very least before the set, and have it be 30 seconds and timed, and you only get that one shot, and each player does get that chance, and either can get coaching during either's timeout, much like every single sport that we see out there. If one team calls timeout, the other team doesn't have to do push-ups on the field. They get a timeout too, and they get coaching from their coach. So I think that's what everyone would like if coaching is allowed. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of coaching, and especially in the Smash series. So Melee hasn't seen as much set coaching and hasn't been as much of a contentious topic. You see it more often in Smash 4, and a lot of people have different opinions about it. A lot of them are quite wrong or irrelevant or just completely off base. So let's try to get those out of the way. It all comes down to one thing: whether you think coaching takes away from Smash or if you think it adds to it. Those are the only two opinions that you can have, I believe. Those are the only two opinions that are valid that you could push for or against coaching. Do you think it's great that it's just two players going at it, they're all alone, and they have to, you know, get it done? Or do you think coaching kind of adds to the drama? It's like, all right, this guy's getting coaching, maybe he'll make a comeback, or, you know, she'll make a comeback, or something like that. Or, oh, the last time he got coached, he pulled a reverse 3-0, or what do you think he's saying to him right now, yada, yada, yada. And whether you think, you know, that's a nice thing, or it adds to the drama, or like, all right, this will get more competitive now because this person, you know, got some tips, maybe they're in a clearer mindset. And there's definitely two different kinds of coaching that we do see. It's either mental coaching, it's like, all right, you got this, you know, just, you know, stay focused, you know, you can beat this guy. Or, hey, you should be shielding on platforms here more often, or these aerials aren't working out. Or, you know, you should do more of this, they're doing this, you know, they aren't buffering an option on ledge, so you should try to, you know, trump them, or something like that. Or they keep going for up tilt into back air or some, so, you know, focus on that, try to pivot grab when they're dashing in, something like that. Or, you know, it's the mental aspect. And we definitely see more in less coaching overall in Melee, and a lot of that you see like Tathokins and Liquid Captain Crunch, and they kind of mostly get into like mental coaching, especially when it comes to Crunch and Hungrybox. They're really, really good friends, and Crunch really helped Liquid's Hungrybox get into a stronger mindset, you know, that he ran through Evo last year. He was putting himself in a better mental state. It wasn't so much about, you know, do this when Armada pulls a turnip. You know, it wasn't something like that. It was definitely more of a mental thing, and that really, really helped Hungrybox. And in Smash 4, we definitely obviously see both, but the arguments that people make that don't make any sense are the following. That it's a timing thing. It takes too much time. No, it doesn't. Coaching very rarely happens or is sometimes even allowed outside of, you know, top 32 or top 64. Sometimes they'll allow in like top 16 or whatever. But I've never seen coaching before top 16, but I assume it has happened at some point. And they're only 30 seconds, and they are timed. The TO, you'll often see them right there staring at their phone that has a, you know, stopwatch, or they have a literal stopwatch, and they'll say time, and then there's like, all right, you have to go, you have to leave. Like, that has been consistent. If someone's like, oh, this player, you know, their coach does it more than 30 seconds. No, that has never happened. There has been no recorded instance of someone calling out, hey, the guy that I was playing, he got more than 30 seconds of coaching. Like, that hasn't happened. If it has, we would have heard about it. People, you know, complaining on Twitter or making, you know, YouTube videos or something like that. So, and it's only 30 seconds. I don't think we've ever seen, or seen that many coach timeouts that are more than 30 seconds. And they've been really on the nose about that. You'll see them and they'll time you out and, all right, you both have to leave, or maybe only one player gets coaching. You have to leave now. That's been consistent, and that's not time that is, oh, Smash already takes super duper long. Now they're adding all these timeouts and all this coaching and stuff. And it's like, your coaching only lasts as long as a timeout does, and you only get one, and there are only 30 seconds, and each player can only do it once. So it's not making, you know, it's not adding hours or, you know, even half of hours or 15 minutes to a tournament. It is not something that makes things last longer. That's not an argument you can make because you're wrong. Another thing is, oh, coaching is unfair. Now, this can get into whether you think it's good for the sport or not, but it is fair. It's like, oh, some people can't afford coaches. It's like, well, most players aren't sponsored either. You know, that you could say that's an advantage because of, you know, travel or lodging expenses, or, you know, exposure or money or things like that. But when it comes to when coaching matters, that typically only will matter at, you know, in top 16 or top 8. That's the only time where, you know, all of the lesser players have been, you know, fiddled out, which is less of a problem in Melee, where we have the gods for a reason. You know, our top 5 are always going to be the winners, you know, in a tournament that they're in. Where in Smash 4, there's a lot more upsets because of how balanced the game is. There's a huge roster. But the fact that people say, like, oh, it's unfair, some people don't want coaching. Some people, you know, maybe they don't have somebody that they play with or somebody that knows the matchup, and they don't have anybody to coach them. That's just, them's the breaks, folks. It's not unfair that someone can have a coach and someone else doesn't. Maybe you could try to institute some sort of rules to help out other people by making it more fluid for them, but then you're giving special treatment to some players, and that just muddies the waters a bit. So it isn't unfair. It all, like I said, it all comes down to, is it good for the sport or is it not? Those are the only two arguments you can make. It's opinion. It's just your tastes on how it is. Now, so let's compare the coaching aspects to other esports. There are, of course, tons of other esports that have coaching. I can't name a lot of them that have mid-set coaching. Most coaches, quote unquote, in esports, you know, they're mostly teams. They're, you know, single esports really mostly only come down to fighting games. But you'll have like a team of, you know, however many people in a, you know, a Dota or a League of Legends or an Overwatch team. They'll have a coach, but, you know, they go over strategies with them, you know, during practices, and they go over VODs, and, you know, this is what you did right, this is what you did wrong, this is what we should do more of. And that's not something that you see play out in tournament. There aren't like mid-set coaching that I have personally seen at high levels, where all of a sudden a coach steps in the middle of a match. That's something that I haven't seen. But there are coaches. And if you want to compare Smash Brothers, let's talk about Smash 4 here. Not that it matters. But if you want to compare Smash to another sport that we might see on TV, some people say, oh, it's like boxing because it's just one person fighting another person, and there's, you know, they ding 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 in between rounds, and the coach, you know, gives them a pep talk and, you know, wipes them down with a sponge or something like that. But I think Smash is mostly like tennis than any other sport, because you can have either doubles or singles, but, you know, singles is what we're talking about here. And there are coaches, and they've even had arguments about whether on-court coaching should be a thing. But in majors, there is no on-court coaching, let alone in between or during games. And there has been a debate about that. Like, Djokovic is for it, Federer is against it, yada, yada, yada. And, you know, women's sports has different things than like the lower levels like college and juniors. They do allow on-court coaching. But when it comes to the professional level, outside of qualifiers, during all majors, there is no on-set court coaching. You'll often see the coaches in the stands, just, you know, silently watching, and that's it. You know, some have allowed. Once again, it's usually only in qualifiers, not in like majors or opens or anything like that. You'll see like some hand gestures or some yelling, and there's some accusations about like illegal coaching, or they went over the time limit. That isn't a thing that happens in Smash Brothers. But the reason I think Smash is mostly like tennis, because it is one person versus another person, and you have games and sets and breaks in between, especially when it comes to, you know, like really long sets that go on. And that's the debate that has been going on for a long time, and that's not going to end anytime soon. So I don't see it ending here in Smash 4, especially since we don't have a regulatory committee for Smash where, like, all right, you know, these are the rules, this is how stage banning works, this is, you know, these things are legal here, but in other terms they aren't. We would all like that, and we would all like to see Smash treated more fairly when it comes to, you know, the viewership that they get and the support that they don't get from Nintendo. Where, you know, other fighting games do, even though Smash has like consistently more viewership than almost every single game out there. And when it comes to like an amalgamation of total views throughout the year, Smash is like obviously the you know, the number one when it comes to fighting games, because I don't think it'd be fair to compare them with other games that they aren't the same, because they're like multiple teams and, you know, all kinds of stuff, like, you know what I mean. Just go to Korea. That's shit gets crazy there. when it comes to competitive gaming. But when it comes to Smash, one of the biggest things when it comes to coaching is, all right, let's allow coaching, before sets, which, I don't think you could really argue against. But when it comes to, mid-set coaching, does it have an effect? Let's first think about that. And it obviously it does. You can ask players or their coaches, or sometimes you can just watch a tournament and see a player just turn on a dime, like Mewtwo King giving coaching to MKLeo during Umebura in the grand final set against Ken. He was already sent to losers by Ken, and here he is in grand finals. He has to get 2 sets off of him. Mewtwo King was like, all right, you're aerialing the Sonic, that's not working out. Just go to platform and charge limit. You'll instantly become a better character. And you should pivot grab when he dashes in. And when you switch to Meta Knight, he's not buffering an option on the ledge, so you can go and trump him and get those back airs. And Leo made those adjustments, and he reset the bracket, and he won the game. And I don't think it's because of it is because of a lot of factors. He was improving his play, and Mewtwo King doesn't have to tell him to do things that Leo is already going to do. But that coaching definitely helped, and you could see him not doing things, he got coached, and then he was doing those things, and that helped him win, where, he got crushed on winner's side, and then, he wasn't doing so good with the Cloud, and then he started, doing a lot better with Meta Knight, and then once he started going after Ken at the ledge, and challenging him more in the air, and dashing and shield grabbing, he started doing like a ton better, and he won that grand finals set in straight sets there. So it does have an effect, and there are people on a lot of different sides of the fence. Zenodo is against coaching, Zero is for it, Anti doesn't really care one way or another. He says that it should be allowed. I believe Larry and Ally are against it. So there's the kind of things like, oh, it's unfair, I have to beat 2 people. No, you only have to defeat 1 person, and it's the person that you're playing. And whether you like that somebody is given information, like, okay, you keep making this mistake, because if you're a coach and you're on the outside, you can see things that the player isn't seeing because they're in the heat of the moment, and maybe they're not be realizing that they're doing or not doing something, or their opponent is doing or not doing something. So coaching can help you. That is not something that we can really argue. Coaching can help you. It really comes down to a matter of, once again, do you think it's good or do you think it's bad for the sport? It doesn't waste time, it isn't unfair, and maybe you think it adds to the drama, or it makes for better Melee or better Smash 4 because, they got a coaching and all of a sudden they're doing better, and we get to see more hype, close sets and things like that, which everybody really loves to see. Or do you like that it's just 2 people going at it, no outside forces are influencing it, and you think it's more hype, it's more epic, it's more dramatic, it's more anime because of that? Those are the only 2 stances that you can have. Everything else is wrong. You aren't beating 2 people. If your opponent's allowed to coach, then you're allowed to coach. It's up to you if you want a coach or not. Any Smash 4 or Melee player that is at the top echelon, they could get somebody to coach for them, whether they hire somebody via their sponsor, their team. Obviously not everyone's going to be able to do that, depending on who their sponsor is or how famous or what kind of placings they do get. But they'll get a friend, they'll get a homie from their area, or someone who knows the matchup or that character that player is playing. That's not really like, if Zenodo wanted a coach, he could get a coach. He's Zenodo, but he doesn't like coaching. So, and Mango doesn't like coaching, or sorry, Armada doesn't like coaching. So they don't get a coach because they don't like it. They don't think it's good because they like the way that it is without coaching. That's just the way that it is. Many people could have their reasons for disliking it, but when it comes to like, oh, it gives them an advantage or not, no, because both players have the ability to have a coach, and that's going to be for the same amount of time. And often coaching doesn't make an impact. That's also a thing that happens. You're not like, oh man, this guy got the download on this other player, so now he's going to tell that dude that he's coaching. Sometimes the coach just goes up and says, oh, I wasn't watching, but keep doing what you're doing, dude. Like, that's also a thing that we hear. It's not always, you have to do this because they're doing that. And no one's breaking any rules, no one's cheating, no one's getting an unfair advantage. It just comes to whether you think it's good for the sport or not. It doesn't slow it down. You could say it adds to the drama, or you could say that it detracts because all of a sudden a third, quote unquote player is added into the equation. But Smash is a mental game, it's a physical game, and there's a lot of things involved, so you can see why coaching would be a thing that could help you mid-set, and it's not something that's going to be resolved. It would be nice if it would, and we can have some, rule that is universal throughout all majors out there when it comes to whether it is coaching or not. Whether it should be decided by the fans or the players is like another subject, and you could say, that one should matter more than the other. But it all comes down to, like, is it hurting? Like, it was like, oh, here comes a coach, we lost, 30,000 viewers. Like, that's not a thing that happens. Oh, this guy got coaching, so now he's gonna, beat 0. It's like, no, that doesn't happen either. So it isn't a problem. So that's not something I think we should address. It all comes down to your preference. So let me know what you guys think. I think it's fine. I don't have any problems with it, regardless of who uses it or who doesn't, who's against it or who isn't. I don't think it detracts from the sport. I'm not saying that it necessarily helps. Coaching has helped people win games. That is a thing that has happened, or that we could theorize have happened, because we don't have time travel. We don't know how shit works. But I don't think there's really anything wrong with it. It doesn't make it run slower, and it doesn't take away from the game. Kind of like Zenodo, it's like, nah, who cares? Some people say, oh, you can't compare Melee or Smash 4 to another sport. It's like, yeah, we can. And we could also view it as it is in Melee or Smash 4. I don't see any coaching in Brawl or 64 PM, but hell, they could do what they want to do as well. So let me know what you guys think, and let's just cross our fingers that people stop arguing about it, more so than anything else.